Welcome to the best 4 years of your life is how the college years are described to us by those around us. But what happens after those 4 years? College can have you move away from home for the first time, and the people you meet and the memories you make can be pivotal. However, leaving college can be an adjustment as you toss your cap in the air, realizing that your life is changing forever. You aren't going to see the same people you were seeing regularly in college. You are out of school for the first time and are in the real world. You might feel emotions such as happiness, confusion, and anger. Post grad is about figuring yourself out, and at 22 years old, you don't know everything. In this video, I'm going to talk about two films that deal with the confusion and tension that comes with entering your post grad life: 2020's Shiva Baby and 1995's Kicking and Screaming. 2020's Shiva Baby is the directorial debut of Emma Seligman, starring fellow NYU classmate Rachel Sonnett in the lead role. Shiva Baby was originally a short film in 2018 that was Seligman's thesis while at NYU. Shiva Baby takes place while Danielle is a senior in college at the end of her final semester. Danielle is a sugar baby. She is hooking up with an older man, Max, saying she's in law school and needs the money. She has to attend a Shiva with her family and encounters her sugar daddy and her ex-girlfriend. The stress of the situation culminates over the film, and you are interested in what will happen at this event surrounded by her family, as well as her being repeatedly asked what she will be doing once she graduates. The film feels like it takes place in upstate New York or even Long Island. An Elle article about the depiction of sugar babies while talking to Emma says, "How much did you know about sugar babies before taking on the role?" Well, a lot of mine and Emma's friends sugared. I think NYU is the top school for it. New York is expensive, and NYU is very expensive, so it makes sense. We had experience talking to our friends who did it. There's such a range, too. The way it's portrayed sometimes on TV is very sexy, or there's just one version of it. And Emma was able to write a really nuanced experience that I haven't seen a lot, like a non-sexy, non-glamorous version. When Danielle arrived at the Shiva, she asks her mom what's the line that she'll say, which is that she's finishing up finals and has a few job interviews lined up. Maya, her friend from high school, is heading to a good law school, and it can make this time of your life difficult if someone close to you has their life together while you don't. When we meet Max's wife, Kim, she offers a job to Danielle, but Danielle rejects it. Even though Kim has good intentions, her connection to Max scares Danielle, especially because she would find out about the affair. The constant pressure of trying to figure out what you want to do post-college is a feeling that Rachel Sonnett knew very well, as she talks about this with Variety. When you were graduating from college, did you feel similar pressure to Danielle as everyone is asking her what she's planning to do with her life? 100%. I went to school for acting, so we're starting off on a bad foot. While I was in school, I started doing stand-up and tweeting a lot. I was really being open about my sexuality. That's my comedy. I was raised to be, I don't know if prude is the right word, but I wasn't going to have sex until I was married. I think my family thought I wanted to go to school to do plays. And then I'm sitting there tweeting sex jokes. They were like, "What is this?" And I was like, "This is my career." And they were like, "What? Why?" It comes from a place of love. They just want to make sure you're okay. While trying to figure out where to go from college, there is a feeling of imposter syndrome. It plays into how some liberal arts majors are looked down upon. The age-old question when you're graduating college is some variation of what's next. Max asks Danny what's the post-grad plan, and even asks directly what she needs the money for if not for law school. That questioning was done on purpose by Max, like it wasn't any of his business what she uses the money for. There are three important relationships in the film: Max and Danielle, Danielle and her mom, and Danielle and Maya. Let's begin with Max. Danielle feels some control and power in the relationship, and throughout the film, she feels uncomfortable with seeing him outside of the apartment. When she sees Max, he realizes she isn't in law school, and it's this life that she's built falling apart. The little control she has. She's been lying about everything with him, and the music in the scene builds the tension. The part that gets me is he's been lying as well, with the reveal that he's married. When she reflects on being on the Sugar Baby app later in the film to Maya, she says that it felt nice to have power. And at 22 years old, that's understandable because you don't have the power that you want. There's one moment where she seems to regain the control that she had before the Shiva, when she almost seems like she's going to reveal the affair to Kim.
Because of your parents?
Yeah.
No. No. We met at shul.
The fear in Max's eyes, even for a second, has Danielle in control. When talking about your early 20s, there can be a complicated relationship with your parents. Family is shown to be a major part of various cultures, and throughout the film we see this through the main characters being Jewish. In college, you might be away from your parents for the first time, probably not living under their roof, and the freedom you feel has you become someone that can be unrecognizable to them. Rachel talks about this complexity while in college and being someone different around your parents. This article from Elle says, Danielle is wearing so many masks at the Shiva. Did you feel like you were playing multiple characters at once? Definitely. I was raised pretty religious, then I got to college and everyone was like, be a slut and cancel your family. When I went home for the first time, I felt these two different versions of myself fighting against each other. I think Danielle has the version of herself that she plays when she's with Max, which isn't even the real her, but she enjoys playing that. And then she plays a version for parents, the relatives, and with Maya. So I feel like she almost gets whiplash because she's trying to cover all her bases. Danielle's relationship with her mother is complicated, which isn't unheard of when you're in your early 20s. You want to be an adult, but your mom still sees you as a kid. There was this one scene where she's with her mom after the coffee spills on her and she says, "Mummy." Reverting to Mummy depicts how she's still a child. This scene is probably my favorite in the film because Danny asks her mom if she's disappointed in her.
Are you disappointed in me?
What? No.
Disappointment from your parents can linger on you forever. Later on, her mom is going to ask Danny a question. Danny assumes she's asking about Max and leaves the convo.
You're not...
Sheila, I can help you with these chairs.
I can't confirm that her mom knew that she slept with Max, but she does say later on in the film that she wishes she swatted the boys away a little harder. Finally, Danielle and Maya. They dated in high school and do seem to be opposites of one another. Throughout the film, we witness Danielle's mom's biphobia. Maya knows she's going to law school and what she's doing next, but Danielle doesn't. At times, it does sound like Maya is jealous of what Danielle has, outing to Max that her parents pay for everything while she does the art thing. Maybe Maya feels pressure to go to law school and does so for her parents, but Danielle can kind of do what she wants. In the second half of the film, Danielle and Maya kiss. Before they kiss, Maya gets onto her for not calling her in college and says she needs to grow up and be different, which is just the million-dollar question.
Dude, that I did! I told you that I reached out!
Okay, well, why don't you just call me like an adult?
Nobody calls, so...
Well, grow up. Be different than other people.
Danielle loses her phone at one point, which Maya finds and discovers she's a sugar baby. When Danielle asks her not to tell anyone, Maya says she won't because she loves Danielle's parents, not even that she loves her. So Maya doesn't spill because of what it would do to Danny's parents, which goes back to the importance of family. As the film goes on, the camera feels like it gets closer and closer to the characters' faces, really showing how Danielle is feeling worse as time goes on. As the tension culminates, Danielle isn't feeling rage at the situation or angry at the people around her, but despair. The only stability, her relationship with Max is never going to be the same, while the rest of her life is changing. We think about female rage in films, but Danielle seems to realize at the end of the film she doesn't have the power she thinks she does. She doesn't know everything at 22. Her family is embarrassing her at the Shiva while she's already visibly anxious. She has a breakdown where she starts crying. She repeats, "I don't know." Her mom says it's okay not to know what you're doing, says how everything is going to be fine. Meet a great man, fall in love, emphasis on man, and that all of her problems go back to not knowing what she's doing at 22. The worst case is that she moves in with her parents, but I feel like it's more than that. The feeling of despair at 22 is more than just not knowing what to do after college, but how everyone around you seems to know what they're doing. Danielle has been trying to leave the Shiva, asking to leave multiple times, and then once she cried, she's listened to. It's like she's a young child again. This film is very relatable to the millennial and even Gen Z post-grad experience. The transition from college to the real world feels to be even harder these days because both generations are entering the job market at times of uncertainty. Some millennials enter the job force during the 2008 recession, and multiple articles have talked about how these graduates still feel the effects on their careers. With Gen Z, some of us went to college during the pandemic, maybe even graduated during the height of it, like the class of 2020. The same feeling of uncertainty occurred with not knowing what was next at a time when the world seemed to be on pause. These life-changing events make the events experienced during post-grad all the more strenuous, as our parents don't understand how times have changed. The rising cost of college, and I can't forget about student loans, the difficulty of trying to buy a house, and the increased awareness on our mental health makes us aware of it all. To add on to this, there's been consistent predictions of another recession looming, which seems to have Gen Zers even more anxious as they prepare for their life after college, even though these predictions of a recession haven't quite materialized. Shiva Baby does a great job depicting the real struggles of being in your early 20s and still figuring it out. As the score takes us on a journey that feels like a horror film, maybe the real world is that scary, a terrifying place really, and college is a place of peace. I'm kidding. Now on to 1995's Kicking and Screaming. Kicking and Screaming is the debut film for Noah Baumbach, who was 25 at the time. The title is an idiom used to describe someone who is very unwilling to do what they're being made to do, which in this case is moving on from college. In regards to this film, Noah drew influence from his experiences at Vassar and said for IndieWire that this story is familiar. I've always felt some kind of connection to people who are kind of oversmart. People who overthink things to the point of some sort of paralysis, and I think that certainly can be me on any given day. The film follows Grover, who just graduated from college, and his girlfriend, Jane, breaks up with him to go to Prague. Grover struggles for the next few months with this as he enters post-grad. He seems lost. Along with Grover, his friend group includes Otis, Max, and Skippy, who are also navigating this difficult time in their life. Grover hooks up with college students to feel something, but nothing replaces the love he had with Jane. This film depicts the struggles that some Gen Xers were going through. This film feels straight out of an East Coast liberal arts school. To begin, the dynamic between Jane and Grover is shown to the audience in the first 5 minutes with them bickering at a party. Jane announces that she's going to Prague, and Grover sees Jane going to Prague as her postponing her Get Started year. Grover has this line where he says how they're both wearing black at the graduation, very funeral-like. College can be seen as the end of one's life, but also the beginning of a new one. Grover isn't open to seeing the good in her going to Prague and wants things to stay the same, which isn't realistic. The movie has flashbacks to Grover and Jane's relationship, which is the strongest relationship we see in the film. We see how they met in a college class senior year, and she critiques the story he wrote. He isn't that nice about it. The second flashback has Jane come up to Grover at a coffee shop. Jane has a witty response that she thought of later. Grover mentions how it took her 14 hours to have a comeback, which is just funny. Jane is calling Grover and leaving him messages, and he's unable to listen to the entire thing. We see him listen to the beginning, but when she starts to address Grover, he stops the message. As the flashbacks go on, we see their romance develop. Being scared of change isn't the greatest thing when graduating college, and Grover is experiencing more than just graduation and his ex-girlfriend leaving. It wouldn't be a Noah Baumbach film if there wasn't some mention of divorce, and Grover's parents are separated. We see him on the phone with his mom, and his dad visits him, but never are both parents shown together. When his dad comes to visit him, he's told to tell his mother something from his dad. His dad offers for him to move in with him and his girlfriend to help Grover find an internship at the New Yorker. In Shiva Baby and Kicking and Screaming, the parents are open to helping their kids through this transition, which is encouraging. Grover isn't the only one that seems lost in this transitional period of life, as the rest of his friends are in the film. Otis is one of Grover's friends, and he's supposed to go to graduate school in Milwaukee but backs out after being dropped at the airport. He gets closer to Chet during this time, even being in a book club with him. He ends up working at a video store, Video Planet. Otis wants to stay with his friends, being around people he knows, but eventually he realizes that it isn't best for him. Chet is such an interesting character because we learn that he's been in college for 10 years. Chet enjoys his time in college, and he's a philosophy/German major. The role of Chet was written at the last minute as the actor Eric Stoltz was used to ensure funding. Chet, like Eric, does save the film in some way. Let me explain. Chet has a conversation with Grover, giving him advice on his direction in life. The conversation feels very philosophical, saying how some people need to have a real career, but he doesn't feel that. He chooses to be a student. He likes being a student, and he tells Grover that maybe he needs to have an actual career. This moment is a turning point for Grover, as he decides that he needs more out of life than being tied to his university. Max is the cynic and shares similarities to his character in 1990's Metropolitan, and has one of my favorite lines in the film that represents his character.
In a few hours,
King Kong,
the
other King Kong.
8 hours ago, I was Max Belmont, English major, college senior.
A femme monkey
Now, I am Max Belmont who does nothing.
What are you talking about?
Monkeys,
What do I do?
Ted and Alice.
I do nothing. All my accomplishments are in the past.
Max seems to be the most down about how his post-grad life is going, and he isn't the greatest friend. He is shown to be rude to Otis, and he hooks up with Miami, Skippy's girlfriend. Max begins dating a girl that's a teenager, Kate. And other than stating the obvious with it being gross for him to date someone who was a child, she has a car, a job, and maybe more of a purpose in life. She wasn't scared of getting older. So she did contrast Max's way of life. With Kate, I think he was drawn to her stability and her quote-unquote having her life together. Finally, Skippy. Skippy decides to go back to college, take a few classes that will teach him stuff, going back to the stability that he once knew. Skippy has a girlfriend, Miami, and she cheats on him with Max. Skippy and Miami fight, and Miami reveals that he hasn't been doing his reading since he's been there, and he used her. Miami talks about how she doesn't like his friends' trivia games and that their friend group is in love with each other. I think this says more about how the friend group seems to not be open to other people. For example, Max gets annoyed with Chet being around them more, and Skippy does this later on with Kate. The group is exclusive, where their connections with other people are separate than what they have with the group. Even though the main characters are out of college, the film transitions using the college schedule, with graduation night to begin the film, fall semester, midterms, only 1 month till Christmas vacation, and finals. One of the best scenes in the film is when they're at the bar and get into an argument while they're playing one of their silly trivia games. Grover sticks up for Skippy being made fun of by Max. Max says that's what they do, they make fun of Skippy. Skippy rejects Grover's attempt to stick up for him, saying the fight is a symptom of them trying to stay friends. Max confesses to sleeping with Miami. Skippy says he knows this already because Grover and Otis told him. He says how they're pressured to remain friends in this environment when the only thing they really have in common was going to school together. With Skippy ending the friendship, it was like they didn't have to continue to be friends with one another, they can go their separate ways. One thing I noticed was how Jane and Grover's friends didn't really interact. On screen, we never see them interact, but we do hear Jane ask on the voicemail if Max is doing crosswords, so she does know his friends' personalities pretty well. The separation could be because his relationship with Jane was real compared to his relationship with his friends. He doesn't have the same vibe, because it seems like Grover thinks he's too good for his friends. Grover and Jane grow closer as the year goes on.
I wish this year would last forever sometimes.
I know.
Another flashback is the memory of them getting drunk. Jane asks if they have a love affair and if it would last. He gives a non-answer, and that's his problem. He didn't fight when Jane went away or asked to come with. He seemed to never want to change his life and do anything that gets him out of his comfort zone. The end of the film has some growth from the characters. Otis finally goes to grad school, not coming back till the summer instead of spring break. I think that's good. He's learning from the beginning of the film when he seemed dependent on the group. Skippy isn't friends with any of them anymore, which is a good step for him. Max is happy with Kate, which has him more optimistic about life, I guess, but dating someone significantly younger doesn't make me think he's growing in any way. Grover decides to go to Prague to see her, and I like when he acknowledges that he avoids conflict. That's why he stays in his college town. He doesn't really do things without thinking it through. The flight attendant finds him a seat, but he doesn't have his passport on him, so he has to wait till tomorrow. Grover doesn't seem like he'll take the risk tomorrow, and that was the moment. He won't have this confidence again. The last scene of the film is a flashback, and it's a continuation of the previous flashback of them drunk and Grover running after her. It has them saying their astrological signs: Scorpio woman, Libra man. Grover's ending monologue is quite beautiful. I think this is the moment they become official, realizing that it might end badly because they're seniors in college and life will pull them in different directions, but they don't care. In regards to this scene, I think about Shiva Baby and Danielle and Maya holding hands in the back of the car. Shiva Baby feels more optimistic with the two finding their way back to one another, but with Grover and Jane, it doesn't quite achieve that. We are witnessing their relationship in the past, so there's no telling what happens next. Maybe Grover moves on from Jane. Maybe he never does. Maybe he goes to Prague to find her. Maybe he doesn't. Who knows, really? Both Grover and Danielle are still figuring out what they're going to do with their life, and the stress mounts on them as the film goes on. The question of what's next is constantly looming in both films, even if not asked directly, because of how the two are unsure of their future. The open endings of both films seem to imply that Grover and Danielle will figure it out. Overall, the confusion, happiness, and sadness of graduating college is one that I can relate to. It sucks. And trying to feel satisfied during this time is difficult because you might not be in the same place as people around you. The term post-grad depression has been talked about a lot over the years, as it is a difficult transition from college to the real world. Therefore, it makes sense to despise this time of your life. However, even though the future is uncertain, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.